Hi guys, it's Sophie. So I'm going to be sharing some LGBTQ+ books with you guys today. Before I start, just for those of you who don't know, I am bisexual, and so the bisexual ones have like a special place in my heart. I'm probably going to refer to these books throughout as queer. I like that term as a kind of umbrella personally, but if you don't like it, please don't take any offence by it. I do mean LGBTQIA+. Whenever I say that, it's just a bit easier to say queer. So first of all, I'm going to show you 3 books that I've picked up recently that all feature female-female relationships. And I'm so excited, like, I've started reading one of them, but the other 2 I haven't read yet. So I'm going to show you those and chat a little about them and kind of why I picked them up. So the first one I have is Pages for You by Sylvia Brownrigg. I picked this one up because I heard about it on What Page You On podcast, which I've just discovered and absolutely love. If you haven't checked it out, please do. And they did a section on like alternate love stories, and this is one of the ones that they really enjoyed, and it was in their best books of 2017 list. Yeah, I am just absolutely loving it. It's a story about a young student who's 17, she's called Flannery, who discovers herself kind of falling in love with one of her teaching assistants called Anne, who's 28, so a fair amount older than she is, and it's the story of their falling in love, essentially. Now, I'm only this way through, but we know from the very first page that the love affair doesn't work out, so it's almost I guess destined to fail, but that doesn't necessarily lessen the intensity of the way the relationship's described. I have really enjoyed the writing in this so far. It's really rich, it's really beautiful, and it has that thing that I think good writing does, especially about quite intimate things, where it reminds you of an experience you've had, and it kind of means you go off and reminisce about things, and I've definitely been doing that, and yeah, I'm hoping I'm going to finish this one tonight. There is another one called Pages for Her, which follows the same story but 20 years later, so I'm probably going to pick up that one when I finish this one. The next one I have is one that I picked up because Ollie Bliss like raved about it at the BookTube meetup, and I actually ordered it online. I didn't pick it up there and then, and it is If You Could Be Mine by Sara Farizan. This follows 2 women or 2 girls, I suppose, because I think it's YA more than anything else, who've known one another and kind of been sweethearts since they're about 6 years old. But in Iran, to have any kind of queer relationship is like completely illegal, and I don't know if it's still, yeah, it's execution if you are caught engaging in a queer relationship. So the girls are kind of stuck at this rock and a hard place and try and carry on what they're doing behind closed doors. But then one of the girls has a marriage arranged for her, and there's suddenly this deadline to their relationship. And one of the girls starts to think, well, whilst being lesbians is a crime, having gender reassignment isn't. So they start to consider whether or not one of them will change their gender to fit the expectations of the society they're in so they can stay together. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this one. I think it sounds like really brave. I think that's kind of what I thought first. It's by an Iranian author, and it's not, I don't think it's under a pseudonym, which feels quite special. I feel like I don't read YA very often, but I will do if it's something that particularly appeals, and this one does. So yeah, we'll see what I reckon to it when I get around to it, and hopefully I'm going to read this one in this month as we kind of approach Pride. Although Pride, like in my local city, doesn't happen until July, so maybe the UK is like behind the US and I'm just getting caught up in the Twitter hype, but hopefully I'll read it before I go to my Pride. And the last one that I have that I haven't read yet is one that I was sent for review and I'm really looking forward to. It's White Houses by Amy Bloom, and this is published by Granta. This I also heard about on What Page You On podcast, I think on that same episode, and this is a fictionalised imagining of the relationship between Eleanor Roosevelt and a woman, I think she's called Lorena Hicks, and she fell in love with this woman and carried on this affair throughout her marriage, and the novel's told from her lover's perspective. but the author is really into kind of understanding the history, and they wrote each other these really long elaborate letters, and at the time they were kind of passed off as like, oh, they're such good friends, and she's drawn a lot from these letters which are all held in the archive, so it's supposed to be really like historically accurate but find its own voice as a novel as well, rather than imagining the past. That she was very clear that she thinks it is fiction, so I'm really looking forward to that. I haven't read anything, I don't think, from that like era with a queer relationship in it, so yeah, really looking forward to it. It's quite short as well, so I'm just going to read all these back to back, who am I kidding. And then I thought we'd just do a whistle-stop tour of some like queer books that I have enjoyed over the last few years, and you've probably heard of some of them, maybe you haven't heard of others, but I thought it could just be fun to share the love, and I would love it if you guys could put your recommendations down below. I'm especially interested in any bisexual representation, and I hope, like, ideally like in adult fiction, and any female-female relationships. They're the two things that I really want to have more of on my shelf, so if you have recommendations, please put them down below for me, but I'm going to show you a few things that I've got on my shelves. So the first one that I have is one you've almost certainly heard of, and that is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. I'm in the pro camp for this novel, so hard in the pro camp for this novel. It is a tragedy about a young gay man and his life and everything he goes through. It's vibes of like The Secret History in terms of close friend groups. It's just so beautiful. I cried buckets reading this book and completely fell in love with Jude. If you haven't read it and you're like, oh, some people don't like it, I think about half of the people love it and about half of the people hate it, and if you love it as much as I do, it is well worth a shot. Something I just want to give a quick flyby to, because it doesn't have, I don't think, a main character who is queer, but it does link with queer issues in a way that I thought was quite well done, and it's kind of similar to the last one. So this is Christadora by Tim Murphy. I'm pretty sure the author is gay, but it is written around a family who adopt a boy, and it's kind of like looks at their building, but it's all set like in the centre of the AIDS crisis, and it talks a lot about that, and I just thought it was a really human way of looking at that. And whilst this isn't one that I feel is like necessarily queer, I think it has a good fictionalisation of that history, and I've tried not to put too many in there that are just like just focusing, especially for gay men, like just focusing on AIDS. Whilst A Little Life isn't particularly cheery, I'm trying to go for like more normal stories and like relationships, but I do think that one's interesting if you haven't heard of it or thought about reading it before. The next one I have is one I read a really long time ago and I'd really like to reread, and that one is Middlesex by Jefferey Eugenides. This one is broadly focused around the life of a young person called Cal, who has or is a hermaphrodite, and so they're kind of intersex, and it's about the way that gender roles have impacted on them and like their experience of the world not fitting into one of those two categories. Yeah, it's kind of a transition from someone being a woman to someone being a man, and I don't know, when I read it I remember feeling like a little door had opened up that I was like, I didn't know any of this and I'm really glad I do. As I say, I haven't read it in probably like 5 or 6 years, but I remember really enjoying it, and yeah, if you have read it, let me know down below if you liked it too. I've not heard anyone on BookTube talk about this, or I haven't heard anyone talk about this in a very long time, but it really affected me when I read it. The next one I have also deals with transitions, and that is The Argonauts by Maggie Nelson. I expect lots of people have heard of this one and read this one because it was such a big deal on BookTube. But it's about a woman who falls in love with someone who is a woman, who then transitions to become a man, and it's beautiful. It's one of those books that I just underlined like throughout. It's just perfect. Like I can't even quite explain how perfect it is, but like if I try and flip through, you're probably gonna see like all my red underlinings, and those of you who've been there a while know what that means. Yeah, I absolutely loved it, and yeah, it's just perfect. Like, it's so quotable, and it just attacks the ideas of gender and makes you rethink all of the things that you've kind of learnt from when you were young, and it's just gorgeous. This is probably one of my favourite ones that's on this list. Then I have a couple of graphic novels. The first one I have is Blue is the Warmest Colour by Julie Maroh. This is like most people have seen the film, but this is the like original graphic novel of the love story between these two women, one of whom has the most fabulous blue hair. I don't know. I don't know why I love this one so much. I think it is that it's a relationship. It's just a relationship, and that made me really happy and excited. And I watched the film when I was quite young, and probably quite impressionable, and just it meant a lot. And I think this book means a lot because of that. And yeah, I love the idea of having books just about that, about gay relationships that aren't strange or aren't traumatic or aren't a plot point but are just a thing. And I feel like probably that film was one of the first things I'd seen that gave me that. Yeah, so yeah, it has a warm fuzzy place in my heart. I do have one other graphic novel that's fairly massive to show you because it wouldn't be complete without it, and that is 100 Nights of Hero by Isabel Greenberg. Oh my god, this book. It's just perfect. Like, the illustrations are fabulous, it's got stories throughout. It's essentially about two women who are trying to escape the kind of ravages of this horrible man by telling him stories. And they kind of are in love with one another. I don't know if they're in love from the beginning or not, but they quickly fall in love with one another, and are just trying to live and have their lives, but also whilst telling these like fabulous friggin' like queer tales. And it's so good. Like, I would put this book in everyone's hands. I really want to get my boyfriend to read it because it's funny, it's like talking about really big things. I need to reread it soon. Clearly I'm like far more excited about this book than I should be, but it is so good. Please, if you get a chance from your library or whatever, just have a read. The next one I have is another like quite old favourite, and there's a bit of a story like behind this one, which was that I knew about this book and I got it out of the library a few times before I ever actually read the whole book, because I wasn't like properly closeted when I was young. I didn't come out to my parents until I was 18. Was I 18? Yeah, I think I was 18. Maybe I was even older. I might have been 20. It might have been when I had my first like bring home girlfriend. And it was something that like my friends kind of knew about me, but no one at my school had known. There were like big rumours about me being a lesbian at school, and because I was with girls, obviously. So it wasn't like they weren't true, but I didn't necessarily like stand out there and be like, yes, I like women. I was more trying to pretend I didn't, I guess. So this book, whilst some people might not enjoy it, really means a lot to me, because I picked it up so many times wanting to read it and felt like I couldn't, and being able to read it, like when I'm in a place where people accept me for who I am, meant a lot. And that one is Sputnik Sweetheart by Haruki Murakami. Now again, this is, it's queer, but it's not told like from a queer perspective. It's told from, I think it's a single man who's experiencing one of his friends being in a relationship with a much older woman. And I'm pretty sure that he's in love with her as well. It's that strange Marakami viewing women thing. But it is this depiction of a girl with an older woman, and that was my first experience, was with someone who was a lot older than me, and to see it written down and have it somewhere rather than just this like strange dirty thing I had in my head, like, do you know what I mean, rather than this strange secret I couldn't tell anyone, to realise other people had done this before. And that sounds really strange, that sounds really naive, but I didn't come from a place or like a place in the world where there was like this discussion about people being queer, and this book like made me feel like I wasn't all on my own and I wasn't weird, and it was just really exciting. So this one means a lot to me, and I would recommend it if you haven't given it a shot. The next one I feel is massively underrated, and I'm well due a reread, and that is The First Bad Man by Miranda July. I don't quite know how to explain this book. It's so difficult to explain, and like it's problematic and weird. In an essence, I think the best way I can think to describe it from my memory of this book is that a woman falls in love with a woman and can't quite understand the concept of this female-female interaction, and the partner becomes more and more male throughout the book. and violent and more like traditionally male, like, you know, toxic masculinity, sorry guys, not like just bad men. But you have this sense of like twisting of gender and twisting of sexuality, and it was just really weird, a really weird book, and it kind of talks a little bit about like kink as well, and that's quite rare in books, and I definitely need to reread it. I loved this. It was probably one of my favourite books of whatever year it was when I read it, and I feel like no one's read Miranda July. I kind of feel like people just have, it's just passed people by, but yeah, I just thought it was different and interesting and challenging, and I like that. And the very last one I have is one I've read fairly recently, and that's Her Body and Other Parties by Carmen Machado. I absolutely ate this book up, and it's going to be one of my top 10 of the year, definitely. But there's one story in this short story collection, because it is short stories, that particularly meant a lot to me, like meant a really like great deal to me, and it's called Inventory, and all the story is a collection of the lovers that she's had. And the ways in which she's interacted with them, and it goes through, and the thing that I saw, that I so rarely see when I read anything, to be honest, is that there is this interaction with a man, and maybe then another man, and then a woman and a man and a woman and a woman, and that means so much. Like, I think the bi thing can be quite hard, like trying to find not just representation, it's very easy to be invisible, but trying to have that sense of it fluctuates, and the people you're with fluctuate, and it doesn't, you aren't suddenly straight when you're with a guy, and you aren't suddenly gay when you're with a woman, and even like the two communities on either side, like gay people and straight people, in my experience, I'm very quick to say like, oh, so you're straight, or oh, so you're gay, and I think just to see it listed out as like, there was a man, there was a woman, there was a woman, there was a man, like that, just really affected me. And I think I wasn't expecting to like feel all the feels as much as I am in this video, but it's not something I really talk about all that much. I don't really talk about it here, because I don't really want to like face backlash, I guess, and whilst I'm out and I, you know, I'll talk to people, even like my work or whatever, I think I still probably have some like remnants of feeling like I'm going to be really badly judged for this, or that people will think I'm easy, or I can't make my mind up. So yeah, it's meant a lot to share this, and hopefully you've got something from me just like raving about these books. Please don't forget, I would love some recommendations in the comments of anything that you've had that's made you feel similar. Be kind, and I'll see you soon in my next video. Bye!